Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. We're happy to have you here at No Soundbites Allowed, and we're going to be starting in just a moment. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Michael Voss, and this is No Soundbites Allowed. This is a long-form political commentary, and we talk about a lot of different subjects in case you've never been here before. I'm also known as the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and if you've seen some of my commentary, you may know why. So, just to get to it, I wanted to talk about something that I've been noticing, and I was talking about it yesterday. You may or may not have seen my video that I had done yesterday, and I was talking about what was happening with Goya. I'm just putting it up for the screen for you. The Goya boycott, the All Lives Matters murder of Jessica Doty Whitaker. And I have been talking about that a little bit. I was talking, well, actually a lot, and how this is all playing out. And I do invite you to go ahead, take a look. And at the end of the video, if you go and you look down in the description, I'll have links to all of the things that I'm speaking about. So you'll be able to see the information for yourself firsthand. But in talking about what happened with All Lives Matters, and to be very brief about it, a young woman, Jessica Doty Whitaker, 24-year-old mother of a 3-year-old son, as I recall. This is in Indianapolis over the weekend. She got into an argument with a group of men and women who had said, hey, Black Lives Matters. She said, all lives matter. And she was killed for it. Shot. Dead. And it's troubling. It's distressing. It's aggravating and angering that anyone in America is going to be killed because they said something as simple as all lives matter. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's, even if you think that's a racist statement, which I can't imagine why, it isn't. But even if you said that it was, someone's words, an innocuous statement, a political preference of another individual does not justify murder. Does not. And we really haven't heard from elected officials across the nation talking about this. They really should be. They absolutely should be talking about this and saying, we denounce anyone having violence, and especially murder, to another human being because of a difference of a political opinion. If you believe all lives matter, that doesn't, I should say, if you don't believe all lives matters, then you are not justified in killing someone for that. I mean, that's a pretty simple, straightforward thing to say. Yet we're not hearing that. And I would love to hear Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, all the various Democratic leaders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. Where are these people coming out and saying, you cannot and you should never even consider harming someone, let alone killing someone, because they have a different political ideology? You would think that would be simple for them to say. It's their party. The Black Lives Matters, the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, sometimes known as PLOT, the Antifa, the far left fringe, the progressive wing of the party, they're all Democrats. They're all in the Democratic Party. You would think the Democratic leaders would be all out there saying, don't commit violence because you don't agree with someone else's political opinion. You would think that would be simple. And so I was talking about that yesterday, again, talking about that in my discussion about the boycott of Goya and the murder of Jessica Doty Whitaker in Indianapolis in the All Lives Matters issue, which is still not being really covered by the major news media. In fact, it's been somewhat covered up and thrown in a basket and, forgotten about. I haven't. But when I did that live stream yesterday, I then got done and I spend a lot of time each day looking at the news media. And that brought me to the story I'm going to be talking about today. And I have to ask the question is, where are we going? What is the end of all this? What is the result? And it's important because we have to understand, where are we going as a nation? What is the end of all of this? Because I'm kind of scared and I can see how it's escalating, and we need to talk about that. And I want to talk about it in detail because I can give you a headline and it's not going to make a difference. I can give you a couple of hashtags and it's not going to help anyone. This is a problem. We need to have a discussion about this. We need to be prepared and understand and not be taken advantage of, because I think a lot of people are being taken advantage of emotionally because people aren't talking about this. And it's just do this or you're an evil racist. And that's wrong. That's just manipulation and it's wrong. And I want to call that out. Now, and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So let's walk through this so that everybody understands exactly what I'm talking about here, so that when they call me a racist, they can try and figure out why. Because I don't think I'm racist at all, but many of the Black Lives Matters political leaders of tomorrow, members in the Southern Tier of New York, seem to think I am. So you tell me. The city of Detroit, according to Wikipedia, looking at the list of mayors of Detroit, since 1962, January 2nd, 1962, has been and continues to be Democrat. They're all Democrats. They all control that. Michigan is a Democratic state. That is pretty straightforward. It's not a crazy thing. Michigan is a blue state, and Michigan and the city of Detroit has had consistently 8 different mayors, all of them being Democrats, 5 of them being black. Okay. Think of that means nothing. That's just a fact. That's a reality. Okay. Of that, we can tell that going back to at least 2003, and I want to expand this a little bit, you can see that the historical chart, and this is coming from Macro Trends, so don't blame me for this, but this is their data, which is based on the data from the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting, or the UCR program, FBI data from 1999 to 2018. And if you're looking at that, the crime rate for the city of Detroit is about 6 times that of the United States, about 5 times the rest of the state of Detroit. They have big problems with crime. It is the 3rd most violent crime in the state of Michigan per capita, per 100,000 people. And looking at Detroit, it is consistently and almost unchangingly about 6 times as more violent than the United States as a whole, and about 5 times more violent than the state of Michigan as a whole every single year, going back to 2003. That's incredible, okay? And if you're looking at in terms of the murder-homicide rate, well, even though there were some recent declines, they've been pretty steady. If you're looking at this chart, they're averaging about 40 per. The United States, look at this. I mean, if you're looking at it, the rate 4.9 for the United States, 5.5 for the state of Michigan, and Detroit is at 38.8. Do you get that? That's the murder rate. That's insanely high. That is insanely high. And if you're looking at year over year, from 2018 going to 1999, they have been as high as 54.559 for their murder-homicide rate, and as low as, and I just want to double check the list again to make sure I didn't miss it, 33.78. Now, when you average that out, let's call it conservatively, they have a murder rate of about 40 per 100,000. The United States, at its absolute worst, according to the FBI data, is 5.7. 5.78. Let's call it 5.8 per 100,000. That's the murder rate in the United States over the same time period. And in Michigan, for the state of Michigan, the highest that I noticed before, and I want to double check again, is 7.4. Same year, that was in 2006. Now, that's not the highest that we've ever seen, or it isn't the highest that we've ever seen in Detroit, which happened to be in 2012. But you're looking at insane numbers here. So you could say, why is the Democratic Party and all the BLM people, when they're talking about we have to do something, Black Lives Matter, why are they looking at this? A predominantly black city, Detroit is. And why are they not saying we've got to take care of the murder-homicide rate? Because they're not. That's not their concern. That's not what we're hearing out of there. And I want to talk about this group. Organization that's called Detroit Will Breathe. Okay? And I'm going to come back to this in a second because it's very important about what happened on July 10th. And this is all going to make sense once we tie it all up. But on July 10th, this is the group, Detroit Will Breathe. And you're wondering, who is Detroit Will Breathe? I don't know. Doesn't seem to be apparent. I'm assuming, based on the symbol, they are an Antifa, Black Lives Matters organization. They are a radical fringe, far-left organization from the Democratic Party. That's based on their symbology. I can't find proof on that because if you go to their Facebook page, they don't tell you who they are. They're a secret organization. If you look at their website, which is DetroitWillBreathe.info, they're a secret organization. They'll tell you where to send money. They will tell you how to try and contact them. You're going to send an email out, but they're not telling you who you're actually speaking to. They're not telling you who they represent. They're not telling you what are their ideas. They will take your information in emails and videos about how you can complain about the police, how you can protest, and things that you should protest, but they're not going to tell you who they are. They're not going to tell you how they're spending the money. They're not going to tell you who's collecting the money and where that money goes. They're just telling you, send us money because, we are here for Detroit's Gonna Breathe and we hate the police. And if you think I'm making that up, here's their list of demands. Number 1, defund and demilitarize the police. You know what that means? Disband the police. They want to get rid of the police. They want to get rid of the police. Hang on. Let's remember Detroit. Homicides per 100,000 people as high as 54.5 out of 100. They average at least 5 to 6 times the national rate. But they want to get rid of the police because that will make people safer. Because no mayor has ever achieved that since the 1960s, and they've all been Democrats. They want to go out there, and they believe that being a protester, which protests often are violent these days, no charges. So if they commit the crime of stopping traffic, if they disrupt people's lives, that's okay. That shouldn't be a crime, even though it is a crime. Okay. They want, what is this? There was another one that caught. Oh, and they want to make Detroit a sanctuary city. These are their demands. This is a secret organization that was not willing to say who are their leaders, what are their actual goals, how they spend their money, who they're giving that money to. They don't want to tell you anything about them, but they're making demands and you have to listen to them. And this is endemic of what we see in BLM, Black Lives Matter, across the nation. This is what we see with groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, which happen to be in the upstate New York region. This is what we see with Antifa. These are secret organizations that have mystery leadership that spend money mysteriously on objectives no one knows about. And I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Now, you may say, and they don't want police to use rubber bullets, which, is a way to save people's lives. It's less deadly. So deadly force, they'd rather people be shot. I don't really understand that. It makes no sense. Don't use rubber bullets. It's how you keep people alive, especially at riots. They want to decriminalize all drugs, all recreational drugs. They want to decriminalize heroin. That's a recreational drug. Ask any addict. They think it's a recreational drug. So, they have some issues here. And they have some issues that, I can agree with. You want to make the police better? Fantastic. Fire police that are involved in police brutality? I don't question that. Should we criminalize homelessness? It depends on the argument there. Should you evict people? Well, are we talking about since COVID-19 or are we talking before then? There's questions here. Some of the things maybe you agree with, maybe you don't. But here's the thing. Who are you agreeing with? Why are you agreeing with them? What do you think they're going to do? Because besides getting rid of the police in a city that is rampant with violence and murder, I don't know what else they really stand for. So the reason why I'm leading all of this up, and yes, this is long form, so stay with me here. The reason why I'm giving you this background is I want you to understand where we are going in this nation through this example of Detroit Will Breathe. Where are we going in this nation? What's the end point? What do we see happening here? So I got done yesterday, July 12th. I did my live stream talking about All Lives Matters. And then I found out about this story about Detroit Will Breathe. And it was on July 10th, Friday, that right around 12:30, their local time, a young man was killed. Mr. Hakeem Littleton was killed by police. At 3:30, this is what Detroit Will Breathe put out on social media. And I'm going to turn it up a little bit so you can hear it. Oops. Sorry about that. So let's see if we can hear this properly.
San Juan and 6 Mile, McNicholas West and San Juan. Motherfucking police just shot this 19-year-old kid 20 fucking times because he walked out of his house and down the street.
Stop right there. That's it. Stop right there. So I wanted to play that, and I'm sorry for the language, but this is what they put out live. This is what they put out on social media. It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible because the people that are there at that time had no idea what actually happened. None. They do know that a young man who happened to be black died. That's a fact. It was a police shooting. That is a fact. They know no other information. You have the crowd accusing the police in general of being the person who shot that young man. They don't know why. They don't know how. They had no information whatsoever. That's important to understand. So shortly after that, at 3:55, after they have already put out information that 34,000 people have seen, but already was going wild in the Detroit area, they then put out, about 20 minutes later, a call to action. Said, Detroit, and I'm reading it right off here, and I want you to see this. I want you to see it very clearly. Rapid response call to action. Detroit Police Department killed a 19-year-old today. Our planned march is canceled so that the movement can respond to this injustice. Get to this address as soon as you can. This is what they're telling people just before 4 o'clock. They still don't know what actually happened. I want to skip ahead a little bit here. This is them being very angry. But that same day, an hour later, 4:58 p.m., Detroit Will Breathe says the Detroit Police Department murdered 19-year-old Hakeem Littleton on 6 Mile and San Juan come and demand justice. They're already claiming that this is an unjust action. Now, you may have heard about this story. It's just starting to gain some attention in some places, but I want you to understand what I saw and some of the information I started reading about this. If you look at, and this is from Click on Detroit, news station in Detroit, their news, Click on Detroit, I think it's channel 4 on the news, I'm not sure. And they reported protesters march on Detroit police 12th precinct following deadly shooting. Protests broke out across Detroit. This is them reporting today on this. Broke out across Detroit after 20-year-old Hakeem Littleton was shot and killed just after 12:30 by police. It sounds horrible. And you know what? I have to admit, that sounds absolutely horrible. It's horrific. Why are police shooting this 20-year-old kid? What's going on? Black Lives Matters is playing on the emotions of the public, saying, oh my God, police killed another person. It's like George Floyd. It's not like Rayshard Brooks, who is justified because he actually got into a fight with police. He actually assaulted police. That was a justified shooting. No. This is like George Floyd, who wrongfully was killed by a police officer. That's what they're saying. And you have to be angry. And we need to have protests. And we have to fight this because the police are wrong. That's the message that's being put out there. And if you're reading just a headline, and most people do, if you're reading just a headline, police are evil. And if you're just looking at this mysterious group, this organization that no one knows who's the leadership of, that doesn't tell you where they're spending their money, that's telling you to give them money and give them your support, these guys are saying, you gotta come out. You have to join our protest of this 19-year-old being killed. Now, for anyone who actually did some research on it, as I did, what you would have found out, and I found this out yesterday before I saw this article from the Daily Caller, saying Twitter users forced to correct NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt on police shooting of Hakeem Littleton. Different spelling of his name. Who knows? It could be either one. But this was at 8 p.m. that they were reporting it. You see, it seems that Nightly News, NBC Nightly News, decided to push this issue. They decided they wanted to talk with it. They had Lester Holt cover the shooting of Hakeem Littleton. That Detroit protesters demand justice after Hakeem Littleton was killed by police. There's something very important about this story. And if you look into this, you'll find out. Hakeem wasn't an innocent kid. He wasn't, as initially was being reported, he was not unarmed. That's the thing. The initial report is this was an unarmed kid. This young man was wrongfully killed by the police because he had no weapon and no one knew about it. And Lester Holt was promoting and pushing this message that was coming from Detroit Will Breathe. False information, a lie, being used to emotionally use the public to promote a message, a political ideology, that's a lie. Because the fact is, Hakeem actually he was shooting at the police. He was trying to kill the police. That's terrifying. That's the reality. And, I thought I had it up here, but bear with me a second. I just want to show you what is Hakeem Littleton. Oops, hang on. I want to show you this. Let me search for this. And I'm searching for this real time. Okay, so here it is. And this is graphic, folks. I want you to understand. This is graphic. I am going to play this for you. This is coming from the news media. Well, there's the news media. There is the body cam footage. The body cam footage from the Detroit Free Press. Okay? It's 1 minute and 21 seconds. This is not edited. This is the body cam footage that has been released by the Detroit Police Department. And I want you to see the unarmed, innocent young man that Detroit will breathe and Black Lives Matters is telling people they need to protest and why they need to get rid of the police department. I want you to see this so you can see it for yourself, and it is graphic. Keep that in mind, folks. Let me stop it. That young man in the white shirt, that is an entirely different individual. Police were looking for this individual on a separate crime, on a separate issue, and they were looking for this individual. They found him, and they were coming over to get him, to detain him, to possibly on charges or questions. Entirely separate. This gentleman right here, that's Hakeem. That's Hakeem Littleton. Now, let's keep watching. What was that just now? Did you see that? Don't worry, you're going to see it again in a moment. I want you to see this very carefully. And you're going to hear the sound. There is no sound yet. You will hear the sound. Just keep watching. And no, he didn't kick him. He was checking. He kicked away the gun. Here it comes again.
Fuck you, Richard, phone, man. Stop fight!
Hang on. There's another one. Watch this in slow motion. That is a gun in his hand. That was a police officer. There it is. This is Hakeem Littleton, who was, quote, unarmed, the defenseless kid being shot by the police, pulled out a gun, pointed to this officer's head, and shot him at point blank range. That is roughly 3 feet. It is point blank range. And tried to kill the man in cold blood. Now, he's surrounded by other police. I don't know what he's thinking he's going to do. I don't know why anyone would make that decision, but this is what he did. Okay? And then he gets shot. And the news media, and if you listen to, Detroit Will Breathe, if you listen to the Black Lives Matters, the far left message on this, well, Hakeem was shot in the back because he's running away from trying to kill a police officer at point blank range that had nothing to do with him. He was not involved in the incident at all. The police were not looking for him. They weren't paying attention to him. He pulled out a gun and tried to shoot a man point blank range in the face. And then, according to police reports, and as you could hear in the second clip, he kept shooting while he was on the ground. That's why the officer we're looking in the body cam ran off, and why other officers continued to fire. He kept shooting while he was on the ground. That's why they kicked the gun away from his hands after the shooting. Now, this is pretty graphic. It's harsh. And I gotta say, here's the thing. Here's the thing. We have groups in America, groups that go by a lot of different names. Black Lives Matter. They go by Detroit Will Breathe, by Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, by Antifa. And in my opinion, they're all exactly the same people. They're the same organization. They have the same goals. They have the same demands. And those goals and demands are socialist. They are disruptive. They are racist, sometimes sexist. They are meant to make you weaker and less safe. And you are evil if you do not agree with them. If you do not agree with disbanding the police, and let me be very clear about that. If you're saying you want to defund the police, that means there's less police officers. That means you're disbanding the police. To some degree, you cannot defund the police without, to some degree, disbanding the police. They want you to have less police officers. They don't want you to have firearms, and they want you to be subservient to their will. That's why they have demands. Demands made by people you don't know, people that have a goal you don't know about, that have an objective you don't have any idea about because they won't tell you, because they are secret. They are a secret organization. And that secret organization wants you to be filled with rage. They want you to be out there doing their bidding, fighting the battle against police when it's completely and 1,000% unjustified. I understand. If it's George Floyd, we all agree that's absolutely fine. You know, there are people right now who are saying that when you try to shoot a police officer point blank range in his face, right there, that's actually the shot going off. When you try and shoot a police officer right in his face, there are people who said, well, they should have used non-deadly force. Really? Look at that. Non-deadly force. You just try to shoot someone in their face. That's troubling. And then when you add that to the fact that we had All Lives Matter, a woman's being killed because she said the wrong political ideology. Where are we leading this nation? Where are these people taking this nation? I can show you. Where they're taking the nation? New York Post reported July 11th at 1:29 a.m. Wisconsin driver intentionally crashes into motorcyclist because he was white. Can you imagine that? Because he's white, oops, sorry, getting a phone call. Because he's white, he decided, and here it is, a Wisconsin man struck and killed a motorcyclist. Hang on, let me bring this up bigger. A Wisconsin man who struck and killed a motorcyclist told investigators he intentionally crashed headfirst into the victim because he believed all Harley riders are white racists. Really? This punk thinks that just because you ride a motorcycle, I can kill you. Kind of like what happened in Indianapolis, where a young woman, again, her name is Jessica Doty Whitaker, was killed because somebody just like this guy decided that you can't say all lives matter without being a racist. If you ride a motorcycle, especially if you're white, well, guess what? You must be a racist. So this guy who believes in the message being sent out by this group and many others like it, and I don't mean specifically their message, I don't want to say that, but the overall theme of their message, they're the ones who are inciting this Wisconsin driver who killed a man just because he happened to be white and he was on a motorcycle. And that's the same kind of thing that leads to people like, which was reported by Andy Nago, a reporter out in Portland, and on this morning, July 13th, 4:21 a.m., he has video showing that Antifa, again, the same kind of group as we see here in Detroit Will Breathe, that Antifa, another radical wing of the far left, steal a man's bicycle and then punch him. Let me play that for you real quick.
Where's Mary Joseph, huh?
No, you fucking slut. We're done with you.
We're not going to West Top.
Yeah, because you know what? You have no fucking respect. So do you think we have respect for your fucking son? You think we have respect for your fucking son?
He's drinking. He's drinking.
What are you saying, bro? You wanna get some... Oh, shit! What's up, bro?
And that's legal.
That's legal. Dumb shit, bro?
No, she's hit me as
You
legal.
wanna see some dumb shit? Yeah,
She's hit me as legal.
fucking mouth, bro.
Why are
You
you-
was racist. Get the
Why are
fuck
you-
over, you black.
So I hope you could hear that. That's all about they didn't like what this man was saying. Now, I don't know what he was saying. I can only show you the 37 seconds from Alex Milan Tracy that Annie Nago put up there. So I don't know what was said. But what could you say that justifies someone stealing your property and attacking someone physically? Well, if it happened to be in Indianapolis, all you have to say is all lives matter. That's all the guy had to say is all lives matter, and they can steal his property and they can attack him. And that's wrong. And if that's the case, he got off lucky because he's still alive. Jessica Doty Whitaker is not. But meanwhile, these same types of groups are trying to get a riot going. And these kind of moments, this emotional manipulation is leading to people like this idiot in Wisconsin who intentionally killed a human being because he didn't like the guy's color of skin and that he was on a motorcycle. And you know what? Let's think about this for a second. And this is the problem I have with it. I don't care if you think Black Lives Matters is important. I don't care if you think that they're doing the right thing. Let me stop for a second. What we are doing in this nation, what is the end point of all this? At the end of the day, we are teaching people to be racist and to have violence against other human beings because of the perception of an organization of secret individuals. Because of the kind of thoughts that BLM, Black Lives Matters, has put out there, we've seen in Indianapolis, we see in this Wisconsin man, we see them taking that emotional manipulation that we see kind of like with Detroit Will Breathe, where whether the information is, in many of these cases, it's completely wrong. Because guess what? All white motorcycle drivers are not evil, racist people. I've known many. They're not. I'm a motorcycle rider back in the day, and I'm not evil. I don't think people on motorcycles are evil just because they're riding a motorcycle, regardless of the color of their skin. But it is in this guy's mind. It is in the kids in Indianapolis. It is in their mind that, you know what? If you are white, you must be evil. How hard is it to change that to if you are black, you are evil. If you are Asian, you are evil. If you are Jewish, if you are gay, if you're transgender, you are evil. History tells us that it is absolutely simple. That if the media is misreporting information, like NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, when they misinform the public and the public has to correct the news media and say, you got it wrong, the kid wasn't unarmed, and that there was video showing he was not unarmed, and that you are misrepresenting the news, the information people are supposed to understand this by. When you're getting there and people are being misinformed and they have groups that are feeding their emotions to the point that they will riot, they will protest, they could loot, and in some cases, these people are going to go out and kill, but definitely have at least violence. You know what that means? Our nation is in absolute shambles. This brings us back to the days of slavery. This brings us back to the very worst of the racist, sexist things that you've ever seen in America or anywhere in the world. This is how you get race wars started. This is how you get people, a society to break down. And it terrifies me because it's absolutely unnecessary and it's wrong and it's happening. And I have to ask, where are all of the elected leaders especially the Democrats. I mean, again, this is a Democrat city. Detroit is a Democrat city. This has been held by Democrats since 1962. 5 of them being black, 3 being white. They're all Democrats. And they need to come out and say, stop. You want to talk about breathe? Take a breath. Figure out what's going on here. Ask the question of who is leading your organization. What are they trying to get your money for? What are they trying to do? They want to defund and disband the police. You know what? Democrats have failed since 1962 in Detroit. Getting rid of the police, I don't think makes it better in a city with 6 times the violence and murder than the rest of the country. And I don't think the Democrats have any clue on how to fix that because they haven't done it for 50 years. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe a secret organization with a secret agenda that is racially dividing people to the point that they will commit violence and that they will commit murder. Maybe that's what we need in America. I don't think so. I disagree with that vehemently. And I call out all of these organizations like Black Lives Matter, like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, like Antifa, and let's add Detroit Will Breathe on that list of people who are doing the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. They're creating situations or helping to incite situations where we got idiots like, and I'm going to say it because I'm sorry for his death. I'm sorry to his family. But when you pull out a gun for no reason whatsoever and you try and shoot a cop at point blank range, that's a very stupid thing to do. And you cannot tell me that you can't expect that you're going to get shot because of it. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying that's the dumb thing. That's not what you're supposed to do. You should never do that. Especially if you want to live. That is evil. That is vile. It was unnecessary. It's uncalled for. This is wrong. And I'm not going to say he's black. Well, he should. No. I don't care if he was white, Hispanic, if he was pink and purple dots. It doesn't matter. You pulled out a gun for no reason whatsoever and try to shoot another human being point blank in the face. You are wrong if you do that. And we should say that. And if you want to protest, if you want to have a protest, guess what, Detroit Will Breathe? This is not what you protest. This isn't something that doesn't justify saying, hey, the first thing we got to do is defund the police. We got to disband the police. No. This is not a reason why you would disband the police. You probably want more police and you want to have them more armed and more defended if this is the response that's going to happen when they're doing their job. And I am terrified that our nation is having people like this idiot, whose name is, by the way, he is accused. And let me be fair. If as he has intentionally, as he has stated that he intended, if he did in fact kill a human being intentionally, then Daniel Navarro is an absolute evil. I can't say the words on YouTube or Facebook. This is an evil man. And this has got me angry. And sadly, it's not the only time. You know, we saw that BLM killed an 8-year-old. Black Lives Matter killed an 8-year-old just a week ago because they were shooting at a family, because the family was in the wrong place in Atlanta. We saw kids die, children die in Seattle at the Chaz. The far left has successfully been responsible for killing more people than the cops have killed unarmed, unjustified people in America today. What, there's been accusations of 2 or 3 black men that have been killed by police, like this one with Mr. Littleton. That's not true. Rashard Brooks is not true. I don't know. But I think if you totaled up the numbers, the kids in Chaz, 16 and 19 years old, the 8-year-old down in Atlanta, this man who's hit on his motorcycle, David Dorn, the police officer, during the rioting and looting. When you start adding all these people up, Black Lives Matter has killed more people than the police have, more violently, with less provocation and less reason. It's terrifying. There was a guy in Dallas who was beaten to death by a mob. Yes, he had a sword. Yes, he was aggressive. They beat him to death and videotaped it. And it's not the only time we've seen that. Look, I'm not going to say that there aren't bad people in the world. I'm not going to say that there aren't evil people in the world. I am saying that manipulating people's emotions, claiming that everyone of a certain skin color, of a certain occupation, of a certain sexual preference, of a certain religious belief, a certain political belief, by demonizing all of them, you are not making America safer. You are not making America better. All you're doing is causing people to go out, stupid people to go out and try and kill other human beings. And I do blame Black Lives Matters. I do blame Detroit Will Breathe. I do blame other organizations of this nature, Plot. You're causing harm. And the media, in not being honest, in saying that rioting is a protest, in saying that taking over cities, like in Seattle, is a protest, in saying that these are simple protests. No, once violence has happened, they're no longer protests. Call them what they are. They're crimes. And when the media doesn't call these groups out and say, you're a secret organization, who is your leader? What is your objective? What are you doing with this money that you are collecting from people? What are you trying to do? And why are you misleading people with false information and having their emotions riled up and sending them out after the police when you're wrong? When the media is not doing that, this is all coming together, and it's a bad thing because people are dying for no reason at all. We all should call that out. So this went longer than I expected it to. It's got me more upset than I thought it was. But I wanted to be in detail, and I wanted to give you the full background so that you have full context on what is going on in America right now. Please check out my live stream yesterday talking about what happened to Jessica Doty Whitaker and what's going on in Indianapolis. Check out this video. See some of the other videos that we've done. I should have put this up before, but please subscribe because YouTube is not going to promote me. And Facebook is not going to promote this. They're not going to let you hear this. They don't want you to hear this or to ask these questions. And that's sad. But I want you to think about this. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Maybe I missed something. If you think I'm wrong, please send us a message on Facebook at the Voss Political Commentary, on YouTube at No Soundbites Allowed. Tell me what I missed. Why am I wrong? Well, no matter what, folks, I thank you for listening this long. I hope you're going to have a great day, and I look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon.